We want to thank y'all for coming out. We want you to engage in this meeting, and Dr. Beasley, our superintendent, will go through a series of items on our agenda, and he will culminate his conversation with conversation about SPLOS and take some questions and answers from the audience. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Our superintendent, Dr. Morrissey J. Beasley.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Smith. It's good to see all of you here. I am hopeful that every school is represented here. I told Dr. Smith, I want to know who's not here today. I'm taking roll. You know, there just comes a time when you bring in you bring the community together, right? You bring the village together, and every school should be here. Would y'all agree with that? Yes. And so, thank you all for being here on today. We promise we will not hold you very long, but we do want to share some information with you that hopefully all of you will share in your various capacities and basically get the word out. Get the word out. I'm very clear, and the staff, we're very clear as to what we are allowed to do relative to certain topics on the agenda. But let's go ahead and get started, if you will. The first topic is the advanced learning update. Well, before I do that, I see principals. Principals that are here, let me recognize our principals. Principals, if you would stand and just be recognized. Let's give our principals a great round of applause. And Corey, our board chair, our new board chair. Did you leave, Miss Corey? Where are you, Miss Corey? Apply. Oh, you're right over on my left-hand side. Good to see you. Well, thank you again for being here on today. And so let's hit the agenda very quickly. The first thing, advanced learning. You may have gotten a brochure about advanced learning. So I won't read that brochure to you. But just so you'll know, we are moving our district in a fundamentally different direction. We will no longer be known as, oh, that's just Clayton County. Look at your neighbor saying, isn't that the truth? We will not be known by that. We have decided that we're going to create a model. So what we're about to do is not being modeled by anyone else in Georgia, not anyone else in the country, and I've already had conversations with people around the country. We have decided to move away from high expectations for a small group of kids towards high expectations for all kids. And we're going to work these expectations, support these expectations toward ensuring that all of our kids are successful. We want all of our kids to be what we call college and career ready, whether they choose to go to college or not. The truth of the matter is, whether one goes or not, it should not be predicated on whether or not you are coming from a school system that prepared you or didn't prepare you. So our goal is to get all of our kids prepared. So if they choose to exercise the option of going to a technical school, a 2-year college, a 4-year college, wherever they choose to go. They may choose to go to a specialty school. It doesn't matter to me. The bottom line is they all need some training in something. Y'all agree with that? Yes. You should. Because all of us know, the more education that one has, regardless of what area that one is in, the better off that person, that family will be. So thank you for understanding. We're moving away from high expectations for a small group of kids towards high expectations for all kids. So what will happen in our school system? First, at the elementary level, you should begin to see all kids expected to do some type of problem-based learning. That means all kids will figure out some type of problem they want to solve and do research across the board. Employers tell us all the time, we want everyone that we hire to have 4 skills: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. We can't teach them enough of content, but what we've got to be able to do is ensure that our kids develop in those 4 critical areas: critical thinking, communication, creativity, and collaboration. And so in order to do that, we basically realized, not that we didn't know this, but we want our kids solving problems. solving problems in their community, solving problems in their state, in their nation, and globally. What are problems that they need to solve? So, all elementary kids will have the expectation that they will do some type of project where they've got to research, they've got to communicate, they've got to think creatively, they've got to think critically, they've got to collaborate, etc. That's going to happen across the board. It shouldn't just be the case that only a few kids are in the science fair. Y'all hear me? So I want all kids to have that experience. It shouldn't be the case that just a few kids are solving problems. All of our kids. And so when we talk about Clayton going forward, I want you to know that in Clayton County, all kids will be expected to develop the 4 C's. To what end? As our kids matriculate through elementary school, starting next year, all rising 6th graders will take accelerated math. What does that mean? Listen to this. That means that they'll take all of their 6th grade year and half of the 7th grade year math in the 6th grade. They'll take half of the 7th grade year and all the 8th grade year math in the 7th grade. Why are you doing that? So they can all complete algebra in the 8th grade. You say, well, what if they don't do well in the 8th grade algebra? Then they'll go in the 9th grade into accelerated algebra, which will give them a double dose will do them some good. The bottom line is this: it is unacceptable for our kids to graduate from high school and the highest level of math is algebra 2 or geometry. No, you're not preparing your kids to be competitive if that's the case. If that's your expectation, no, I can assure you there are high-performing communities where everybody's taking calculus. Y'all hear me? Everybody's taking statistics. Y'all hear me? And so why should our kids be given less or have lower expectations? You say, well, they're not going to all like calculus. We don't all like a lot of things. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the opportunity to get in there and even if they have to productively struggle, how many know it's still good for them? And so, rising 6th graders will all take, starting next year, accelerated math towards all of them in the 8th grade completing algebra. Our goal at some point is to ensure that all of the 8th graders are also completing physical science. At some point, not next year, in the future, all of our high school students will be taking physics. All of them. You might say, oh, how in the world can you do that to them? They can do it. It's all about expectations. Expectations. I remember, and I don't share this story very often, I was a high school math teacher, and I was also a college math teacher at the same time. So my students didn't know this, but I would teach them Algebra 2, Algebra 3, and pre-calculus, but at the same time, I taught statistics. I would teach them all the stats that I was teaching my college students, I was teaching it to my high school students. They didn't know it was college level. But they enjoyed the work, it challenged them, but they really thrived. And at some point I told them that you all realize that what I'm teaching you all, that you all are doing very successfully, you're being very successful in, is the same statistics that I teach to all of my college students. They were amazed. It's all about what? Expectations. It's all about expectations. And so, again, all 6th graders accelerated toward completing algebra in the 8th grade. What will happen to our rising 9th graders? Starting next year, all rising 9th graders will be expected to take at least one advanced placement course. Or dual enrollment if they can get accepted dual enrollment. But the message is this: if you're going to graduate from a high school in Clayton County that says you're college and career ready, you got to have some type of college experience. And we're going to start in the 9th grade. So we've been working with College Board. You all know they're the national organization, international organization, responsible for ACT, I believe SAT, and all advanced placement courses. We work with them and the National Math Science Initiative to identify courses that we believe 9th graders will be successful in, given they may not have had an AP experience. And so our counselors and all are working right now to build master schedules to offer our students these opportunities. That expectation will matriculate with them as they go from 9th to 10th to 11th and 12th. By the time you graduate from Clayton County Public Schools, you could have had at a minimum 4 AP courses. Now tell me, where will our kids go and not be competitive? You say, well, what if all of them don't want to take AP? And that may be the case. But if I shoot for 100% and I land at 80%, it's a whole lot better than the 10% I currently have. Would y'all agree with that? And so we're working toward getting to 100%, but we are moving in the right direction. All 9th graders will take at least one advanced learning course. We're working to make sure that we have teachers trained and prepared. We're ensuring that we have enough instructional materials. We're ensuring that our students graduate from Clayton County Public Schools better off. We didn't have this on the agenda, but I think I'd share this. We're working with college presidents around the country, and I want you all to know this. We've been meeting with college presidents around the country, because this is my conversation with them. When you see an applicant from Clayton County Public Schools, I need you all to tell your registrars to accept those students and then give them additional money, because they will be prepared. They will be prepared. And so we're anticipating that any student in Clayton County who wants to go to some type of junior college or college, if they will apply, they will get accepted. And we're determined that once they go, that they're prepared to be competitive and be successful. Why is that important? Why is it important that we're offering advanced learning? We have the expectation that every 9th grader, rising 9th grader, takes some type of advanced learning class. Because the research is very clear that even if they don't make a 3, 4, 5 on the AP exam, because they've had exposure to those courses, they are more likely to not only get accepted into college, but have a successful first year. If they have a successful first year, they're more likely to return for the what? Second year. And if they return for the second year, they're more likely to come back for the what? The 4th year and earn a college degree. And if that's not important to us, then we don't understand the game. You say, what game? It's called the game of economy in America, in the world. There are communities, there are nations out there that are graduating young people to not just take the jobs in their countries, but where do you think they want to come? They want to come right over here and take the jobs here too. Can you blame them? No, you live in the greatest country in the world. So we've got to make sure that all of our children are prepared. I was in a meeting the other day, and I shared with someone, China has over 1 billion people. Their honor roll is more people than what we have. India has over 1 billion people. Their honor roll is more people than what we have. So are we in a position that we only have 320 million people? Are we in a position to only have high expectations for just a portion of those 320 million? Not if we're going to remain competitive. Because they got enough folk. Even if you just 1 billion folk, even if they just do the bottom 10%, that's still probably more people than what we have. That's why we got to disrupt some things. And I'm having this conversation with my colleagues around the nation. It is time out when you by making decisions for children based upon their parents' income level or the color of their skin and saying that some kids can't and some kids can. Who are we to tell children what they can't do? As a matter of fact, as adults, we should be encouraging them to meet high expectations. So Clayton County has decided that we are going to do something fundamentally different to disrupt those low expectations that oftentimes people have for most children. We are going to implement advanced learning expectations for all kids, Will it be easy? No, it will not be easy. Will it be perfect? No, it will not be perfect. Will everybody make a 3, 4, 5 on an advanced placement test? No, they're not all making a 3, 4, 5 now. But will they be better off? Yes, they will. Yes, they will. People often say, oh, that child can't do it. And I've had this conversation with people, and oh, that child can, and that child can, and this child can. What about your children? What are they doing? Oh, my children are taking advanced play. So it's good enough for your children, but not good enough for these children. You go to this person. Always saying what someone can't do. What are your children doing? Oh, my children are exposed to this and that. So why is it good enough for your children, but not good enough for those children? And so we decided to be very courageous. Y'all may run me out of town, but that's okay, because you're gonna run me out of town doing what's good for children. And I know from experience that children do better. The research is clear. They rise to the level of one's expectations. If you have low expectations of children, they will rise very low, won't they? If you have high expectations, guess what? They will rise to the expectations of the adults where? In their lives. Do we have to support them in the process? Of course we do. But we still should have high expectations of our children. So that's my update for advanced learning. Work with your principals if you have concerns. The principals know the expectation. They know. The principals, the teachers, the parents, and the student, you all should be working together to make those decisions. That is not a decision for Dr. Beasley to make. My expectation as parents is to support you in the process. I want all of our kids to be prepared to have options beyond high school. I want our kids to have options. We should get tired of people telling our kids what they can't do. And so our administration, working with our board, we've decided we will not encourage nor support adults working around our children who tell them what they can't do. We don't want to hear that anymore. And if you feel like that's your passion to tell children what they can't do, I need you to take that passion somewhere else. Because our children can. Our children will. So that's the advanced learning update. The next one, fiscal year 2020 budget. All I can tell you is it's in process. It's in process. We're working, as you all well know, those of you that were informed and connected last year, we worked and we got a balanced budget, and we're working to increase our fund balance, and as we increase the fund balance, at the same time, we're going to also try to make sure that we become one of the highest paying districts in the metro area. Right now, you should know we're number 3. And so we got 2 above us that we need to dethrone. I think Atlanta's one of them, right? All that money they got. But that's okay. That's okay. We're working. And so I just want you to know that one of the main priorities for this year's budget would be to ensure that we take care of our lowest paying employees, our bus drivers, our custodians, our school nutrition workers, etc. And of course, as the governor has promised a pay raise that he didn't figure out how much it would cost before he promised that, and I appreciate the governor. But we got to make sure we figure out what that really costs, because they may say a certain amount, but there are expenditures that the district has to absorb. And so we're working to ensure that once we announce the amount of increase for our teachers, that it's grounded in a good analysis of what we can and cannot do, realizing that we got to sustain it. If you give somebody an increase this year, you got to sustain it for what? In the following year. So sometimes people don't think about that. You want to sustain. And so we're looking at our salary scales, etc., the various employee groups, to see what we will be recommending to the Board of Education. So pay attention to the April board meeting or so, where we'll be bringing hopefully a draft of the tentative budget for the board to consider and tentatively adopt. So that's my update on the budget. We're looking better, we're looking stronger, but more to come. More to come. The next item is the legislative priorities. We just wanted to make sure that you, as you all well know, the legislature is in session, and we've been working with our delegation to advance our legislative priorities. So we thought we'd give you a copy of the legislative priorities as approved by the Board of Education. And please note, part of our work this session, and I'm going to go directly to number 3. We're working always on number 1 to get full QBE funding. That's quality-based education funding. We're always working on that. But priority number 3 is important to us. So again, we've been working with the delegation. As you all know, if you don't know, you should know, that once the aviation fuel was removed from being taxed by the governor last year, Delta has stepped in for the school system, and we're basically getting an infusion of cash from Delta until December of this year, the end of our current SPLOST. We're currently in SPLOST 5, and so the money that we possibly would have been getting from taxing aviation fuel that we're no longer getting because the decision was made to remove aviation fuel from being taxed, Delta has committed to providing those funds to the district. And so every month we invoice Delta Foundation, they cut us a check, that money goes towards our SPLOST program. That ends in December. So potentially our SPLOST could be less $9 to $10 million a year. Over 5 years, how much is 10 million times 5? 50 what? That could be several projects, right? So we're working with the delegation to identify some long-term remedies. And so as things happen at the Capitol, I will keep you all informed. But not only are we working with the delegation, we'll also be working with the Delta Foundation to see how they want to support Clayton County beyond December of 2019. That's a conversation that I don't mind having. People say, you don't mind asking? The only thing you can tell me when I ask is yes or no. You can't beat me up, so I am going to ask. Now, one reason that the Delta arrangement ends in December, listen to this. It ends in December because the current SPLOST also ends when? In December. So they probably would have gone beyond December if the SPLOST didn't end when? So it makes sense to me that when I go to them on March 20th, anybody get that? When I go to them on March 20th, what's that, the day after the vote, right? Then I'll have a little leverage to say, can we continue our arrangement beyond December what? 2019. So now with that being stated, you all have to gather here because I can't tell you how to vote. But I can tell you this, I would sure like to have some leverage to ask Delta to continue with its infusion of resources into our SPLOST program. So let's talk about SPLOST, and we'll start with the videos.
As we continue to grow our community in our pursuit of high performance, let's take a moment to review some of the work we've done, how we've done it, and how we plan to continue to improve our district through the use of SPLOST. In this SPLOST 5 period alone, we've built entirely new campus buildings with the funds we received, such as Elite Scholars Academy, East Clayton Elementary School, and the competition gymnasium at Riverdale High School. We have worked to renovate and modify our existing buildings with projects at 17 campuses and facilities throughout the district, including improvements in many of our schools' heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. We've made improvements to general technology resources, and we're using SPLOST 5 funds to finance the first phase of extending learning beyond the classroom. Our goal? To place a Chromebook in the hands of each student, grade 3 through 12, by the end of the 2022 school year. School buses, maintenance vehicles, textbooks, and other instructional resources. SPLOST 5 has funded new purchases for all of these for our growing and expanding district and has been since 2015. As we look forward and plan for SPLOST 6, we are proposing 3 new STEM schools, Morrow High, Forest Park Middle, and an elementary school in the Lovejoy area, a college and career academy, as well as an early learning center. We will will also look to continuing extending learning beyond the classroom. With expanding into Phase 2, we have hopes of making this innovative initiative a vibrant part of our instructional program. Finally, we plan to continue the purchase of new school buses, textbooks, and other instructional resources, along with various facility renovation projects across the district. This has been what we've done, how we've done it, and how we plan to continue to improve our district through the use of SPLOST.
Thank you. And so you should have within your handouts a document that has the proposed under SPLOST 6 projects, as shared in the video, a new elementary school in the Lovejoy area. The area is growing. Development is growing, so we are getting ahead of the growth in that area. A new Forest Park STEM Middle School, one of the oldest facilities in the district. A new one, and that will be a tear down, build up. Tear down, build up at the same location. And then of course, a new Morrow High School, the new Morrow High School to be on the same campus as the new East Clayton Elementary School. That new Morrow High School will also have a 6,000 plus seat arena. So we will no longer have to do graduations at the Georgia International Center. It will be at the Morrow High School campus arena. A new college and career academy that will, just so you'll know, right now we're looking at the old Morrow, once Morrow High School population leaves and goes to their new building, we will basically do some tearing down and building up at Morrow High School old site and build a new college and career academy with innovative programs such as aviation, artificial intelligence, transportation and logistics, sports medicine and sports officiating, etc. We figure since we have all these professional teams here in Atlanta, we need to prepare our kids for those high-income jobs with those people in black and white on the field. And so we're building relationships with the NFL, the NBA, all of those organizations so they can see Clayton County as a viable option as kids matriculate. When I say you all, we're trying to be very innovative, we are working to be very innovative. We're working with the Department of Education to create pathways that clearly no one else has, because we know that our kids deserve those opportunities. You'll be very pleased when you see the aviation program. We want our kids not only to be pilots, but mechanics, etc. All the jobs that are created right here at this airport that resides where? All right, I don't have to tell you all that. And then, of course, the extending learning beyond the classroom, where we continue with our rollout of putting a Chromebook in the hands of all of our 3rd through 12th grade students. Currently, we have 1,000 students at 4 schools that have been involved in the initial Phase 1 pilot. We've also built into that rollout, for those who need access to the internet, they can get a device that will give them access to the internet. So I think Rod shared earlier, we've only had 2 families in the first 1,000 to receive Chromebook that requested access to the internet. So we clearly have access to the internet more than what we think we do. Purchase of new school buses. As you all know, we want to make sure that we maintain our fleet. We don't want the age. We want a certain range of age for our buses. And so we want to continue purchasing buses as they age. And then a new early learning center. So if you know where the old Riverdale Elementary School used to be, we are going to tear down a portion of that, keep the portion that we can keep, and we will be building a new early learning center. We hadn't decided the ages, but we're thinking age 3 to possibly grade 3. We're working with the county government, the health department. We want a WIC office there. We want a doctor's office, a dental office there. We want any service that a parent would need for our little babies. And our focus will be literacy, so that those kids can read. My goal is to get them reading by kindergarten. Now, some of y'all have some gifted children, and I know you said that's just too late. But I'm good with kindergarten. But that's our goal. Again, Early Learning Center, just so you know, we serve about 25% of our pre-K age children in Clayton County in our school system with pre-K. Another 25% are served by private providers. 50% of the children in Clayton County do not go to pre-K. So we want to do what we can to reduce that. Y'all agree with that? Yes. We believe, and the research is clear, when kids start in pre-K, they start out on a better footing, oftentimes, than kids who do not. And you can see the maximum revenue to be collected there in the collection period. And so while I can't tell you how to vote, I will tell you this. These things will not occur if the referendum doesn't pass on March 19th. Now, so the question for our community is, do we want these things for our children? Yes. And I can tell you this, if you want our community to continue to be looked upon as a viable option for families to bring, because many, whether you know it or not, many people are still moving to the metro Atlanta area. They have many options of where they can live. Clayton is an interest to many of them because of the reasonable pricing of homes and housing. So we don't want to tell those families who are here and those who are potentially coming that basically everything that we're doing relative to facility, we're going to just stop it. But I'll tell you this, the only way that this work will continue on March 20th, there has to be a pass what? Referendum. Now, we can do like we've done in some elections in the past and assume your neighbor going. It may not be the neighbor you want to get the vote that you want. So I can't tell you how to vote, but I can tell you this. If we sit back and assume somebody else is doing it, when it comes to our children, that's a bad position to be in, isn't it? Don't leave it to chance. We need you as PTSAs to get out there. You can tell folk how to vote in your capacity. I can't. I can tell you all what we need you to do is get the word out there that people need to go to the polls and do what? On March 19th. And so I hope that this gathering today is motivation and encouragement to you and information enough to mobilize you to get out there and spread the word. So I want to ask, well, why can't we do a campaign about voting? Everything that we can do, we are doing. We're sending out the SPLOS updates weekly now. We're having this gathering. We'll be sending out the SPLOS updates weekly, and we'll even send home on the 18th, or if not before then, a postcard reminder of this vote, because the school system pays for this election. But again, we can't tell you how to vote. My question to you all is, do you want these projects that have been identified for SPLOS 6? Somebody say, yeah. Y'all didn't say that too enthusiastically. Well, if you want them, then what do you have to do? Vote. You have to vote. And so, that is basically the call today for our community as we move towards higher levels of performance. All of these things, what we're doing with advanced learning, what we're doing with our facilities, what we're doing with teacher training and leadership capacity training, all of these things work in concert to create a culture and a community of high performance. There's not one thing you can do. It's all of these things working together with a community that understands that who's our most precious resource? Say, oh, y'all might say better than that. Our children. And if we don't invest in our children, don't expect anybody what? Else to do it. If your children, our children, are not good enough for us to invest in, don't ask anybody, Delta Foundation included, to invest where? In whom? In our children. Okay? So at this time,
let me ask you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Before you finish. Dr. Beasley, where are these elections going to be held at? Where will people vote at?
That's a great question. The elections sites are the same sites that you go to vote for your political offices.
And where are they?
They are located where, you all? At our schools.
And don't these people in this room have to drop their children off at the school?
Even if they're taking the bus, you can still go by where?
So they need to probably park that day at the school. And they probably need to walk their children into the school. Vote. And the other question is your child worth the current penny? Is your child worth the current penny that you're already paying?
It is a vote to continue.
It's a continuous thing. Are your children worth a penny? I can't hear y'all. Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Gorey, I want to recognize Dr. Anderson, our vice chair, who's also here. Let's give her a hand. We want to bring you a mic, okay, so we can all hear you. Can we get a mic and we'll take some Q&A. Do some Q&A. So, I see some hands back there. I want to move first.
Well, we actually have two mics. We only have one that we can pass around, but if you're close to my left, please join us with this mic.
And while they're coming, let me make sure you know who's here. We've got Dr. Simpson, Deputy for School Leadership. He supervises all the schools. Got Dr. Smith, Second in Command, Deputy Superintendent. You all know Jada Dawkins, our Chief Communications Officer. Dr. Jamie Wilson, our Chief of Human Resources. Rod Smith, our Chief of Technology. And I want to see any other chiefs or deputies here. We're here to serve you all. We recognized the principals earlier. Thank you, principals. Okay.
District PTSA representative.
Miss Cox, where are you, Miss Cox? There she is. Let's give her a hand. Miss Cox, are all the PTAs here today? Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good
My name is
afternoon.
Linda Tate. You spoke earlier saying that you travel all around the country and the nation and whatever. But my question is, how many times have you visited your schools here in Clayton County? That's one. Number two.
That's a great question.
Number two. All of your talk was good. I heard all of it. Some was good, some I'm gonna tell you right now, it's questionable. I never put my kids down in the 39 years I have two of my own sons, and every last one of my children were my children. So I never lowered my expectations. Unless it was what we call necessary, so you can build them up sometimes. You might have to bring it down a little bit. All that 8 feet is good, push them through it, but go for the 8 feet. We'll do all right probably. Now, the real talk. Like I said, that was good talk. But, Mr. B, we got to fix the problems at hand. This morning, a bus left, left 3 young men on the corner. I'm not talking about what nobody told me. I saw it for myself. They were waiting on the bus and they passed them by. My granddaughter had just caught the bus, so I know the children were on the bus with her. The next one, the biggie, next to discipline. These children off the chain. They off the chain. You can't expect no teacher to go in there and try to teach a child 8 people when they don't want to do and don't want to listen. You don't have to also affect my next one. That's number 2. Your morale. You're killing your teachers. I was up in there. I know how it is. I know how it feels. And you're wearing them out. Pressure, tension, stress will kill. And that's the reason why you got to be in it.
So, let's start with the first question. Does your superintendent visit schools? I'll let...
I didn't say, did you visit school? I said, when the last time? I don't mean you, I'm talking about your entire board.
I think within the last few days we've been in schools. And so please know that we model what we expect. So that's not an issue. We visit schools. Number two, relative to high expectations. We recognize that sometimes our children can have discipline concerns, but let me make sure you're clear and informed. As we have implemented high expectations, restorative practices, social emotional learning, we've seen in Clayton County a drop in all of the top 10 discipline infractions, double-digit drops in those infractions in Clayton County. And so we know that it's not a perfect school system, but one thing that this superintendent will not allow is someone to say that our kids are worse than others. Our kids can do it. That's not what you said. Our kids are improving. Discipline is getting better in Clayton County Public Schools. And we do monitor the morale of our staff. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But I can assure you that oftentimes it's not perfect because day to day we deal with stresses. You mentioned the young men left at the school bus. I can assure you that's an exception. That is not the norm. And I don't want us as a community to get the impression that that's the norm. When we get those situations, and Mr. Walker and his team, they're very responsive, we deal with those situations, and that's what we do. That's why we're here, to support our community. But what I don't want to occur is that when one thing, and I say this oftentimes, when one thing occurs, you come to a conclusion about 55,000 children based on one child. We gotta stop that.
Please don't put that, don't put that on me. Don't put that on me.
You're doing good. You're doing good.
Please don't put that on me.
You're doing good.
No.
You're doing good. But let me say this. We're monitoring the morale. Thank you. But one thing your superintendent is going to make sure that you all are informed. We're improving in all of those areas. All of those areas. You have an administration, we all visit schools, many schools. And not only do we just visit schools and classrooms, many of you all invite us to events that we attend. No, we can't be everywhere at one time, but we try to be very visible in our community because we support our children in our community. Is it perfect? I dare you to go to any school district in America, and I assure you, you won't find a perfect situation. Is it improving? Yes, it is. And all of our data suggests that we are improving. Is it where we'd like it to be today? Not yet. But I can assure you, sometimes systems are created that contribute to some of our problems. Low expectations of children contribute to that. And so we're raising up expectations. Will it make everybody happy? No, but is it good for children? Yes, it is. Next question.
Thank you.
Next.
Hi, my name is Farrah Harper. I'm the Vice President of Callaway Elementary School. I'm on the PTA. PTA, not Vice President of the school. But
We understood what you were saying.
But we do thank you for what you are doing in Clayton County. We live here and we are very supportive and we need this. I would hope that some of these wonderful things that you guys are doing for Clayton County, and I understand there's a lot of important things that you guys are doing and very necessary, but hopefully at some point we can get Callaway Elementary School on that list for some remodeling and some upgrades. But my second question would be, I was listening to the news this morning and looking at Brian Kemp with the Common Core. I wanted to know how would that affect our children, our schools?
Okay, Common Core. Just in case you didn't know, We've been implementing the Common Core in Georgia since 2010.
Trying to take away.
Listen, you all. Some folk understand Common Core and some folk don't. I understand Common Core. Common Core are just a set of standards in ELA and math what students should know and be able to do. You can't take that away. I can tell you today, there's nothing that your kids are learning in ELA, English Language Arts, and nothing they're learning in math that the government can take away. It's just not going to happen. Look at the standards. Some people had a problem with them being called Common Core because they came from Obama. I don't care what you call them. They're just a bunch of standards that tell you what students should know and be able to what? Simple. So I don't get into that little political fray. I'm a bit more informed than that. And I like our community to be more informed than that. That's just a bunch of politics.
Hello, Dr. Lee.
Hello.
I am Tony Newberry, the PTA president at Fountain Elementary. I am a novice as I'm entering into the school system with my first grader. He is in the exceptional learning program. My first question is it illegal for parents and PTA associations to campaign for the parents to come and vote for spots? Number two, I find it very concerning, and I hope that you can allocate it in your budget. Other than the teachers and the actual staff, there are staffing such as speech pathologists, behavioral therapists. They are very, very essential to the standards of every student in the school. I find it so much inconsistent when someone is uncomfortable with the budget that they're allocated and they go to another school district because they can't get what they want to stay in Clayton County. That is important, not for my child with exceptional learning, but for other kids in general education that need that extra assistance to overperform and meet the expectations that they need.
So the first question is, yes, parents, you're well within your right to encourage people to support the SPLOS. That is your right. That is the right of every PTA organization and school council members. The second question relative to special education, that's an area that clearly we need to continue to work on. We are having conversations right now about what areas of special education will need additional funding for fiscal year 20. So that is a part of the ongoing conversation. I can assure you that one of the challenges we have with a lot of the special services, like you mentioned speech pathologists, etc., many times they leave the school systems because they can make more money beyond as a private service provider. And so that's just one of those struggles that we deal with. And we try to mitigate for that by clearly hiring those who are willing and hopefully offering some incentives, teacher retirement, etc. Make sure the pay is at least comparable or at least competitive. But that is ongoing work, and that we deal with as a school system, one of the top largest in the nation. We're one of the top 100 in size. We deal with that along with all the rest of the school system. What really helps is when we can have very competitive salaries, but even beyond salaries, it helps when people perceive that your school system is considered or perceived as a progressive, moving towards high performance. People want to be a part of winning school systems. And so part of our work is to make sure, when I say our, not just the superintendent, that would be all of us in here, to ensure that we are creating a winning school system, a high-performing school system, which I believe helps with that recruitment and retention of these services that we need across the board.
Hi, good evening. My name is Terrell Coxon from K-Pace, and they're next door practicing for all those who want to come to our event this weekend, by the way.
And what event might that be?
We have Shrek the Musical this weekend, and we're really excited for our annual musical. So didn't mean to put it out there, but they're next door. All our babies are next door. But we do have a question. The video that you showed earlier, we really liked, and was wondering if it was on soft copy or something that we could possibly put out so we can put it on our Facebook page or where we can get it to.
I think it will go out to everyone tomorrow.
Okay, and then it can just be added.
So we just kind of tweaked it today.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hey, good evening. My name is Annabella Chundia. I am the PTA president for Point Town Elementary. And I'm really happy to be here. This is my first time coming to any meetings like this, so thank you so much for inviting us all. I wanted to say I really do love the video, and I was about to ask the same thing. Can we show it at our school? We're gonna have a meeting next week, I think. And another thing that also the previous, so the last speaker said about getting some more help, I guess. I am from Mexico originally, and it was hard for me to learn English in this country, of course, because you're just thrown into the system. But thankfully, I did have a lot of help from the teachers and many volunteers, many people who were helping my parents pretty much in showing us a way to get the right education. And I'm really, really glad I got the help from the state of Georgia pretty much. I wanted to say, I've seen that there's a shortage of translators in our county that we really, really love to see doing better. It's just every time we have a meeting, we put in a request for translators, and we don't always get them. And I do believe that we as parents are a huge part of our children's education. We have to be present. And it is sad that sometimes it's just the language barrier which is blocking us into really getting the help for our kids that we need. And I believe if we can just get that little extra help for them to understand the greatness that can be Clayton County, and not just really Clayton County, but the whole country, it will be better for our kids. It will lead to better lives, better education, better everything. So please, sometimes it's just as easy as breaking that language barrier.
Yes.
Not only for Spanish, of course, but all the other languages.
No, thank you for sharing that. We'll work with Dr. Romeo to see. We do know that it can be a challenge at times, so she's maximizing the staff that she currently has. And so that's a challenge that we will acknowledge and continue to work with her to address. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Beasley.
Good evening.
I am representing West Clayton Elementary as the PTO president. I'm also a PTA member at Elite Scholars. My question is, what do you think can be done to the better relationships with the parents and the teachers? Because I feel like there's a trust that's been broken. Because at West Clayton Elementary, at our elementary school, there's very little parent participation. It's the same parents. Every time they come out, it's the same kids that participate in all of the special events, and there's no parents that seem like I don't want to say they don't care, but I feel that they trust what the teachers and the administration is doing. What do you think we can do to help that?
That's a great question. I think there are a variety of things and factors that impact that. I know you mentioned West Clayton. West Clayton, just so you'll know, has one of the highest mobility rates in the whole state, which means that on any given day, parents are enrolling kids and withdrawing kids, basically going to Fulton, DeKalb, and other places. So that's one of the challenges. But I'll tell you this, you mentioned West Clayton. I went to a program they had, I believe it was the Christmas program, the winter holiday program. It was very well attended, and so I know the principal there has been working diligently to get more engagement with parents, and so we're seeing an uptick in participation. Now, relative to healing that relationship between parents and teachers, I think the most important thing that we can do as a school system is learn to respect each other in the various roles that we're in. Teachers are not the enemies, are not the enemy, and parents are not the enemy. As a matter of fact, if they don't work together for the child, then those adults are basically losing every opportunity to help that child be the best that he or she can be. And so we'll continue to work with our principals because that's important. The leader at the school is very important too. That role is very important in creating that healthy culture, that healthy interaction, that healthy interaction in which teachers and parents are communicating with each other. One thing we're looking at as we roll out the advanced learning expectations, just putting some fail-safe steps in there so we know that parents and teachers are reaching out to each other, communicating. Communication is the key, and increasing that communication. And when you do communicate, things, because oftentimes, if the only time a parent or a family hears from the school is when something is wrong, they don't really want to hear from the school that much. And so we've got to create positive opportunities. Positive opportunities. I remember when I was a teacher, my first call to everybody, and I was a high school teacher, but I would call all of my parents the first week of school just to say hello, introduce myself. See, it's things like that. I can't mandate that of teachers, but I want to hire the type teachers who understand how important that is. We've got to do more of that. And our leaders have to support those type of actions. But parents, I would say, the most important thing you can do is interact with those teachers, email them, face-to-face meetings. And if you find that you're not getting anywhere, you got to go to that principal. Every school has a what? A principal. You go to that principal because that principal is who we're holding responsible for creating that healthy culture at that school. Some schools do it very well. Some schools clearly are improving. But regardless of where one is, the school, meaning, there are opportunities to improve that. And so we'll continue to work to do that. We have seen an uptick in parent engagement, parent involvement, parents checking grades, interacting and emailing teachers. We want to see more of that. We want to see more of that. But I'll go back to when I started out. That respect, one for another, is so what? So very important. So very important. Parents, I'll say this. In order for us to not only recruit teachers, but to retain teachers, because they have options when they look at the metro area, they have many school systems that they can work for. One thing that we've got to do, so you'll see, adults fighting children, that is just that. I'm sorry, it's just not acceptable. But we can't also have adults and parents cussing and fussing teachers out. Y'all hear me? Because I'm telling you, when that images like that get out about a community, candidates don't want to go to that community. You got to send out positive messages. I'm not saying we don't have problems. We do. But when every image about a community shows its problems, don't be surprised if you can't sell your house. Don't be surprised if they don't want to come to your school system. Don't be surprised. And so, and even when you post it on your social media platforms, if you find high-performing communities in America, I can assure you, they find positive things to post about their communities and their schools. You know why? Because they understand the relationship between teacher recruitment and economic increase in their property values. Everybody's got to understand that relationship. So we're recruiting, we're improving our retention, but I'll tell you this, we still have some more growth to do in that area. And it helps when we have positive respect and rapport one with another, one for another. Okay?
Hello, my name is Tamika Huff, and I'm representing 3rd Grade Marshall. I'm their PTA treasurer and also work there. I have a two-part question. I'm a big proponent of pushing the kids to their highest expectations. However, I'm not a proponent of just dropping them in the deep end without swimming lessons. Are we at least providing some kind of bridge the gap summer programs for these kids to go into so that they will know what the expectations are when they get to high school or the accelerated classes in middle school? And once they're there, if we see that they're falling so far behind, will we at least, if not pull them out, offer some kind of remediation for them so that they can catch up?
Two very good questions, yes and yes, and that's exactly what we've been discussing. So the team, you all know last summer we had a summer of STEM learning, right? And we had many transition activities. This summer we'll also be doing those very same transition activities to get kids prepared for these higher expectations. Will we support kids if we see that they're not doing well? That's part of our plan, implementation. So when we see that students are struggling, first to do everything that we can do to mitigate for that. And then to provide resources and support and options for the child. Our goal, again, is 100%. But if we land at 80%, it's a lot better than 20%. And so we understand that. And we do know that there will be some kids who struggle. But let me say this to us as parents. And I'll say this as a father of 4. Don't be so quick to take your children out of situations where they're struggling. Because I'm telling you, you don't teach them resilience. Let me tell you something. The resilience that I believe I have today, I developed a lot of it in school. Because failing a class or struggling through a class is a lot less risky than failing in life. Y'all hear me? So I would rather my child learn how to struggle, get resourceful, develop agency, figure out who you can go to tutoring, you understand? Spend some time studying a little bit more, because that develops that resilience in them. If we don't allow our children to struggle with school, y'all give them everything else, what are they going to struggle with? Y'all give them all the food they want, junk food. We give them, they don't have to pay bills. They really have it pretty good. So if you don't support them in a productive struggle, like math comes a little bit harder to me, but you can do it. When are they going to really develop resilience? All I'm saying is all of us as parents have to make our own decisions. What I'm saying is, if there's a time to struggle, a safe time to struggle, it's when you're young and when you're in school. And that's what we're here to do, to provide the support. I wish I could say that everybody's going to make an A. No. I wish I could say that they're all going to learn it at the same time. They're not. Because everybody's different. Their brains are different. Things click in your brain that may not click in my brain with certain cues and indicators. That's why we've got to be patient with our children, provide support to our children, and there will be times when we got to say, you know what, we've done all we can do. Let's transition to a different situation. But exhaust all resources and opportunities. We've got to teach our children that resilience. And now you all know at the high school, we're going to block schedule. That means they can take up to 8, they can earn up to 8 credits a year. 8 times 4 is what? 32. They only need 23 to graduate. So they got all those other opportunities to take extra courses, electives, and to better themselves and be prepared for college and career. No reason for a student in Clayton County not to be prepared, college and career ready. But we acknowledge that many will struggle, some will struggle, but parents, y'all hear me, and I don't say this as a superintendent, I say this as a father of 2 boys and 2 girls. All 4 have gone through college, and my boy's in senior year now. I would tell them, when they would tell me they're struggling, I would tell them, go visit the professor, go to tutoring, use your resources, because you don't pay, it ain't free. You pay for all of that, or I paid for all of that. But you gotta get a study partner, go find a study group, spend a little bit more time, what? Studying. It's all good. It's a part of building those skills, that resilience in them. And so, take that for what it's worth. I won't say that they won't struggle, but I will say that as adults, we got to support them through that process. Would y'all agree with that?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Barbara Smith, and my son goes to North Clayton Middle School. Not to put anyone down, it's the best middle school in Clayton County to me, because we're right from the best principal in Clayton County. Call what you want, but I love her, and I just want to say that I've been in Clayton County since 1985. And I am pregnant, but I love my county, I love my schools, I love my educators, my teachers, my administrators. It takes all of us as a community, as a family. And one thing that, I'm not going to be long, one thing that me and my husband do not do, when you have a problem with one of your strict teachers, Don't ever down talk the teacher in front of your children. Because children react on how the parents react. Number two, you don't let your children be in your business. They're children. We are the adults. God put us here to watch over our children, take care of them, and lead them in the right way. We are responsible for our children. People want children, but they want, I'm not trying to be funny, I'm not talking about no one in this room now. But they want other people they want their teachers to raise their children. You cannot do that. You work together. When I have my sons teach, I have their cell phone on, they have mine, they call me at any given time. And when we act out, I believe majority, because I know my son, we know our children. Don't be quick to jump on our educators. They are human like we are. When people come to us, this and that, we say, well, I'm human. The administrators, they're human too. So we need to show a little leniency and understand and open mind, think outside the box. Like, they really have our children's best interests at heart. Because I just do not believe that the educator wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to pick on this child today. I just don't believe that. Now, you know, you might have a few bad ones, but that's everywhere. And a lot of times we have to look at ourselves. What are we doing as parents? What kind of example are we setting for our children? But I don't have a question, but I just want to uplift Clayton County, Dr. yourself, and that the best principal in Clayton County, Ms. Rice, again, that, you know, we love you, continue to do what you do. It might be some negativity, but that's okay. It's really okay. Just, you know, don't let that stop you, let it motivate you to go higher and be better than what you are now. And we do love you all.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tia Taylor. I am a former coach at Lovejoy High School. Currently, I coach with Ms. Rice at North Clayton Middle School. And I currently have I'm mother of a child who's enrolled in a Clayton County school. So I've touched all three areas of Clayton County, from the high school, middle school, to elementary school. And what I've seen is that we need to maybe combine literacy with the arts. As a former professional dancer, I've seen that you need an outlet. Children need an outlet. As we maintain these high expectations, I'm all for that, because my mother didn't play that. It was all about going to law school to be the best you could be. But I turned out to be a very successful business owner, following my passion. With those high expectations, we need an outlet for them to release. So I specifically care about the young ladies of Clayton County. What I'm seeing is that they're lost. They're not having good examples or other programs outside of school for them to follow on, such as recommending programs at the middle schools and elementary schools, like Little Ladies, programs that'll teach the young ladies how to be elegant, summer dance programs where I personally have built the relationships and teamed up with the WNBA, where I get the Clayton County kids a part of the program, specifically the young ladies. The issue that I'm running into is that a lot of the parents can't afford the programs because there's no avenue or no budget for the arts in Clayton County. Combining the arts and literacy is a great outlet for this new generation. I know I'm not a member of the generation currently, however, I am a member of Generation X. So being closely related to this new generation, they have to have an additional outlet other than education all day. We have to provide them with some other avenue. Do we have room in the budget to consider adding space for the arts? Because these young ladies need it, specifically the young ladies, because if we don't get them now, we're losing them to babies, we're losing them to suicide, we're losing them to so many things, peer pressure, and it's simply because a lot of the parents can't afford the programs in the arts that will give them an outlet, someone to speak to other than their teacher, other than their mother, someone like me that they look up to that's not their mother and that's not their teacher. Do we have room for that?
Well, we have, this district funds the arts.
Okay.
So let's be very clear, this district funds the arts. I think we're probably one of the few districts that have a K-12 fine arts articulation. Not only do we have an elementary school of the arts, a middle school of the arts, high school school of the arts, many of our non-so-called fine arts schools offer the arts as well. And so I would say to you, as I would say to any other person who's interested, is if you have a support or service work with your principals to implement. And I can tell you, I can go to 20 different schools and find 20 different ways as to how that's being done. But I want to say this to you as well. Our girls are not lost.
They're not lost.
No,
they just
not.
we want to continue to guide them. And if we don't put those people in place, they can get lost. And being in the middle schools right now, that's the main area.
But I have to say that because as a father, a black father of 2 black girls, I take exception when every time we talk about our children, people say they're lost. They're not lost.
They're not lost. We just want to keep them on track.
And what it takes is individuals like yourselves working with principals and teachers and PTAs and others to keep kids engaged.
Absolutely.
The solutions will not, all the solutions will not come from Dr. Beasley's office.
Absolutely.
They will come from communities working with principals to implement those solutions.
And the principals can add to the budget?
The principals can do what principals do.
Okay. All right. We do that. That says enough. Thank you so much.
And if that means add to the budget, principals know what they need to do.
Hi, Dr. Beasley. I'm Jessica. I'm with Riverdale High School, but I also have kids. I'm at Church Street Elementary.
Riverdale High School, the high school with 80% and higher graduating from high school.
That's it. Oh. Yes. So she's not here today, but Mother Brown is, she's awesome. But you've already touched on the accelerated math for 6th grade, and you did have some good ideas, but I want to know a little bit more about what you will be providing elementary schools to get those students ready. Like she said, we don't want to push them there and then tell them, oh, you're expected to do this, when I know my daughter is a 7th grade teacher, and she says some of them don't know elementary math. So what are we providing for the elementary school teachers?
That's a good question. So one thing this year is as we get toward the end of the year, the last month or so of school, we've identified standards that the teachers can start teaching the 6th grade to the 5th graders before they matriculate to 6th grade. But overall, we're looking at our curriculum to determine what standards we really need to teach. We realize part of our problem is we try to teach so much, we don't teach anything very well at times. So we're looking at the curriculum to decide what do we really need to teach in order for kids to be successful in this grade and the next grade. And so a little narrowing, if you will, of the focus so we can do well on those things. That's one of the things. Of course, training will come with that. Supporting teachers will come with that. And really using a lot of the resources that we currently have, maximizing the use of those resources. But you should know, relative to accelerated math, one reason we're doing this, we have one school in our school system that requires accelerated math of all 6th grade students. Those kids come to that school from all elementary schools in this county. Some of them have done well in math, some of them have not done well. But guess what? Their passing rate in 6th grade math is the highest in the system and one of the highest in the state. Why? Because high expectations and the teachers are teaching. And so part of our work is to systemize those high expectations, make sure that we only focus on the standards that the students actually need, so they'll have time to really develop those standards and provide teachers the support that they need in order to do that rather effectively. And so we realize, again, it's going to take a little work on our part. It won't be perfect, but I do believe that the kids and students will have a better experience. They'll be better off because of it. A little muscle work, but after pumping the iron a little while, you know, it gets better. Good evening. Okay.
However, if you have to leave, we certainly understand, but for those of you who have questions and would like to pose those to Dr. Beasley and would like to wait for those of you interested in those questions, feel free to stay. But we understand and certainly respect all of your time. If you have to slip out, please do so.
And I'll say this for those who have to go, thank you for coming on today. Hopefully this information has been helpful, and I'm confident you'll do what you can do as PTAs and school councils to get the word out. Okay, so we'll give you a minute to exit if you feel like you need to leave, and then we'll remain and try to answer any other questions that others may have. So those of us who are leaving, if you all can leave quietly, I do want to give those who have questions at the mics an opportunity to ask their questions. Thank you all. Line up at the mic. Okay. Okay, question?
Okay, first of all, my name is Sam Huff. I'm the president at Morrow High School PTA. Also a member of the school council there. So I just publicly wanted to thank you and Dr. Smith because we beat up on him quite a bit about the new school. So we want to thank you for that. My one question was at least about maybe the date. I know we got to wait for the vote. And part of that is that we had got a SPLOS vote several years ago, so we were stated, and Dr. Smith knows, but things happened and our school never got built. But we're very grateful because right now we do feel really good that you moving to get the school built. And in that same sense, just trying to look at, do they have the plans? Because I know we're going to do the auditorium. But just trying to, from our standpoint, because we didn't really have any input.
Well, that's because it's early in the process. So every school gets input. So first, your board has been very clear, and the referendum is very clear. And so I don't know what may have happened back then, but when we say Morrow High School, that's exactly what we mean, okay? And that will not be changing.
Okay, and that's the thing that, like I said, there's been many stories about what didn't happen. My second question is more so and I ask this question pretty much every year, about how the kids typically take spring break and then immediately come back and start testing. Now, to me personally, I look at it as we setting the students up. You know, they've been getting them ready for testing all year, give them a break, and then they immediately come back and start testing. Everywhere I've been, from high school, college, we get ready for the test, then we get the break. So they said that it would probably be a case of just the planning part from the administration. And I understand there are rules about having a test in the schools, but I just think that sometimes we talk about preparation, we're not giving our kids the best preparation to do the best on the test.
One thing you should know that we will not test immediately after coming back from spring break. That week, I believe we have built in at least a week off. And different levels of testing at different times. But we do have to make our decision in line with the state's assessment window. But beyond the current state testing, you know, we're one of the few districts in Georgia that was approved by the State Board of Education to pilot innovative assessment practices. So in the next 5 years, our goal is to move away from Georgia milestones. And so we have a few schools that are piloting this year, and each year we'll bring on a few additional schools. So within the next 5 years, if the state, once the state identifies the resource, the tool, the assessment tool, we'll be moving away from Georgia milestones. And so instead of waiting till like May or the end of April to take a state test, our students will be assessed as they're learning throughout the year. And that's the direction we're headed in Clayton.
Dr. Beasley, my name is Juliet Poirier-Smith, for Stillwell PTSA president. And I want to thank you for supporting PTSAs, PTOs. But my question is there any way else that you could help us? Because some of us, we go through fighting a struggling battle just trying to get parents, you know, to come out, support anything, do anything with us. And by the time they get to high school, elementary, it's a lot easier to get the parents in. They're there because the baby's a little. But by the time they get to high school, it's a lot harder to get the kids engaged on all fronts. And if they're not engaged in certain things, then they miss out on certain other things that might be important that we have to put out differently than the school.
That's a good question, and I think especially since you mentioned high school, many high schools struggle with that, and I think when you have programs and meetings, if you can piggyback on events where you know parents will be attending, like progress report nights or conference nights, maybe schedule events, kids performing on the program. I know it sounds very elementary, but it even works at the high school level. But then you have to redefine what engagement is. An email to a teacher's engagement to me. Recognize that sometimes we've got a lot of families that the parents are working 2 and 3 jobs. And so we've just got to be rather creative, if you will, as to how we define engagement and figure out ways to acknowledge that sometimes they can't be there physically, but an email like the meetings we have here, the critical conversations, we try to live stream them. So in case people can't be here, this one is more for just the PTA officers and school council officers. But normally when we do critical conversations, we live stream those conversations. So if you can't be there, you can just, if you have a device, and nowadays most people have some type of device, they can participate using live stream. So just try to think of creative ways, acknowledging that parents do want to be there, but between 2 and 3 jobs and church and all these other things, you know, something gets lacking sometimes. Not to make excuses for parents, but I do acknowledge, being a former high school principal, that sometimes you just got to figure out creative ways to get them there. And instead of having 20 different events, maybe you figure out a way to have 3 or 4 quality events and push those and promote those, realizing that families are very busy nowadays. And don't be a family who has a child at the elementary, middle, and high school level all in 1 year. You got to figure out a way to help them do that. But whatever we can do to support the schools, some schools are doing better at that than others, but I do think being strategic about those activities and those meetings that you want parents to attend, making it so that it becomes very convenient for them to get to those meetings. So,
Dr. B, can I offer a suggestion? Did you say Stillwell? Yes. Okay, this would be my suggestion for Stillwell and the performing arts, the 3 performing arts schools, as well as elite scholars, since they already have to sign an agreement that if their kids don't maintain that B, they're not put in the program, then why don't we say that in becoming a member of those particular schools that the PTA might be you're encouraged to become a PTA member, and if you're not, to engage your child, and maybe you might not be able to stay here. And because we have special requirements for them, so just kind of throw that in there.
And I want to say many of them already have some parent engagement requirements. I'm not sure, but that may be an opportunity for you all. Oh, okay.
It's like a compact. Title 1 compact says something to that effect. Just don't enforce it.
Hi, Dr. Beasley. My name is India Jackson. I have a daughter who attends Clayton County Schools. Last year, her teacher got sick 2 months into the school, which, you know, was fine. But the problem was she had a substitute almost all that school year. We applied for another school. She's a straight A student. We applied for a school, and I believe because she had a substitute teacher for the majority of the school year last year, that it affected her GMAT score. She was not able, she didn't score high enough to get into the school that she would prefer to go to. What is the requirements for teachers and principals to say, okay, if you're going to be out of school for longer than 2 to 3 months, that's FMLA, then we would require for you to have a qualified teacher in our classroom?
That's a very real situation, and because all of us as employees have federal law supporting it when we want to take FMLA, the challenge we have there is that teacher is being paid a salary, and we can't pay for another teacher for every situation like that. We would be in the red. And so we have to make critical decisions. And oftentimes, because subs are budgeted in those situations, we try to get a retired educator, a retired sub, a retired educator who can sub full time. But I'll tell you, that is a very real situation. that all schools deal with, because we just don't have a pot of funds to bring in another teacher when we're already paying a teacher. And when we look at the number of FMLAs we have, that would just be unsustainable. And so it's a matter of doing what's right, bringing in a sub, but also being very mindful of the fiscal impact of it as well. It's most unfortunate, but I don't know of another way of getting around it other than bringing in a retired or credentialed substitute teacher. And when we can find those full-time individuals, that's great, and especially if they work out well. But sometimes that just can't happen.
It didn't work out.
Yeah, it's real.
So what can I do as a parent to try to get her into that school of choice? What can I do as a parent? Because she does feel like the school system, and her dad and I talked about this too, that they have failed her in that regards.
Well, that's a different question relative to the school choice requirements. I'm looking at the requirements. I just think sometimes, again, that's part of the systems that we create that are unfair to kids. And so right now, I don't want to answer that until I have the requirements in front of me, because some requirements, all of that's within our control. And what I don't like are requirements that penalize children for impacts that adults have had on children. And so that's just an area that we'll have to revisit and we'll have to look at.
Thank you.
Hi, Dr. Beasley. I'm a 77-year-old grandparent raising grandkids. I'm here today with my PTA president. I have been selected to be in charge of fundraising. My question to you, is there any truth to the rumor I'm hearing that high schoolers will not be required to wear uniforms next year?
That is true.
That, in my opinion, is the worst thing that could happen to the young men of Clayton County. It's bad enough we have to see them in the streets sagging and bagging, but to see it in the schools also is not fair to the young ladies and the young men who dress appropriately.
But I want to be clear, just because we say no uniform, it doesn't mean we won't have expectations. So we do have dress expectations, but we don't tell them that they have to wear khaki pants or a white or blue shirt.
We have dress expectations now, and they still sag. They still sag.
So clearly work for all of us to do, principals, teachers, parents, and all working together to ensure that they're not sagging. That's just work that we have to do. I can't answer that, and I understand, I respect your opinion, but the truth of the matter is that is just work that we have to do. That's work that we have to do. Whether it's a uniform or not, we still got to encourage kids to dress appropriately. And
that was my first comment. My second question is, I'm from Point South Elementary School, and we at this moment now are trying to start up a PTO. I'm here with my president, and like I said, I'm the fundraiser. My question to you is, why is it so hard to start up a PTA?
I don't know if I can answer that. It shouldn't be. Sid Cox is here.
Somebody has to help me. I don't understand.
I'm not over the PTA organization.
I don't understand.
So why is it so hard, Ms. Sid Cox?
How many people in here, besides people that are officers of PTA, belong to a PTA? How many teachers belong to a PTA? How many principals belong to a PTA? How many board members belong to a PTA? Oh, you join them all. When you start looking at the dynamics, what is happening is, it's not starting at the top. We push PTA, y'all have cards going everywhere trying to get people you know who will join. But you still know that at the school, the majority of the parents are not going to join. Most of our PTAs run, if you get 25 folks, well, we're not talking about, Forest Park High School. We're not talking about Forest Park. They need to teach a class. They got over 300 members. They need to teach a class. But the rest of us are running, we're down here, we get 25 members, we're doing good. But we're running anywhere from 4 to 15, maybe 20. And that's because our mindset is that parents can only join PTA. Your church members can join. Have y'all heard me say this before? Your church members can join. You need to be hitting up every administrator in this room to get your PTA money. But we don't do that. So that is why you cannot get people to join. And then you have to tell them, what do we do? We have people down at the state right now advocating for our children. And just like you were here tonight listening to Dr. Beasley, we are the ones that can go out and say, y'all need to vote for this splosh. We need everybody to get out there and vote for it in March. The school district can't do it, but we can do it because we're what? We're advocates for our children. So that is the main thing. You have to convince people that what you're doing is viable. Any questions for me?
Let me get this mic too, because 2 people left this room that I need to say something. You all keep asking Dr. Beasley the first question about the discipline in the schools, and about, I didn't get to hear hers, about those pants sagging and us in uniform. It's called the Parent Teacher Student Association. The parent is the first teacher. It's not the teacher's job, Dr. Beasley's job, the principal's job. You have to tell your child he has to have his pants pulled up. The discipline. We do not raise your children. You talk about the schools being bad, and like I told one person, she said she didn't want her child to go to the school because the school is bad. I told her, you know what we do? We build schools with SPOS money. We don't raise your children. If the children are bad, it's not the teacher's fault. They're your bad children. So don't send your bad children to school and think that the child, that the teacher is supposed to raise your children. You have to raise your own children. And that's what it boils down to. And I'm sorry if anybody gets upset, but I get tired of people thinking my degree is in math. I'm supposed to teach you that a right triangle has 90 degrees. I'm not supposed to teach your child to be quiet and be respectful and don't cuss and don't come in my classroom with your pants sagging. That is your job to do. So if the parent as the first teacher, if you can do your job, then all of our teachers and our principals and all of our staff, they can do their job. And yes, Miss Dr. Beasley goes to all the schools, and yes, Jesse Harvey goes to all the schools. And right now, I'm worn out from going to and all that. Do you come to the school? Are you a member of the PTA? Do you play that cash free or that lottery? That $5 that lady's trying to put in that vault on that commercial that'll give her $500,000. You can pay that to join the PTA. And that's the end of my sermon.
My name is Adriana, and I have a middle schooler here in Clayton County. And just in talking to several counselors and social workers in the county, I'm just curious to what resources or what plans the county or the district has to support those children that are identified as homeless within the school system. Because I realize that owning a nonprofit organization, we've kind of supported one middle school, but we can only do so much. But we realize that there are a lot of kids that are enrolled as homeless that don't have the support they need, down to socks and toiletries. And so everything up there was great, the buildings are great, but these kids, I can't perform in an AP class if I'm worried about what I'm going to eat for dinner, or if I don't have socks to put on my feet, or if the kids are going to make fun of me because I can't brush my teeth.
Well, homelessness is an issue we deal with every day. We have a very robust homeless department that supports students, works closely with our principals and families to identify who's homeless and the resources that they need to help them through those transitional periods, through that homelessness.
So that's something that the school needs to try to identify to get the resource, because the social workers are telling me they're pulling money out of their personal pockets to do this.
Okay, what school is that?
Jonesboro Middle to be.
Okay, you have a principal there.
I do, Dr.
I want to let Dr. Simpson, but our principals and all, they know our processes. And so that's the first I've heard of that situation. So Dr. Simpson, who supervises schools, is going to address that. But I want, if you ever have a question about what we do for homeless students, I want you to remember this name, Ms. Sonia Davis. Awesome homeless department. Very resourceful, with relentless in ensuring that we get resources for students to help them make it through, families make it through those episodes of homelessness, okay?
I got it.
Okay.
Hello,
Hello there.
everyone. I'm Rosin Brooks, PTO president for Huey Elementary. My principal name is Roxanne Dixon, and Mr. Taylor is my parent liaison. One of the questions I wanted to ask, you said that Forest Park Middle School would be a complete tear down? Okay. A complete tear down. I guess my question is, if it's going to be a complete tear down, so will it be done in the summertime when the kids are out? What happens to the kids? What happens to the teachers?
Good question. We'll probably have a temporary location that we'll use as we're building up the new school. Old Elite Scholars, or something to that effect.
Oh, okay, to the middle school. And then also, another one of my questions is that I think that one job in the school that I really don't know if there is a lot of, but that's a school nurse. Our school do have a school nurse, and I understand having a school nurse in the school is not a necessity. It's important because you do have kids who come to school who take medication, who might be on diabetes. That's another issue. And then also, I just wanted to reiterate with PTO. I do PTO, and I'm also a member of PTSA. I try to be very out of the box doing PTO at the school. I started in October. I heard a lot of comment about what do you do, how do you get the parents there, how do you get participation, how do you get everybody to do something. And I'm just going to sum it up like this. This is not a question for you, Dr. Beasley. It's a whole lot of people, but it's only few. And when you're doing something for a child, my motto is, I do it not looking for nothing in return. Oh, we have 800 kids in our school. So when I walk in the door every day, it's not just PTO. It's PTO, it's PTA. I work with Huey Elementary, I work with Forest Park Middle School, I work with Forest Park High School. I make sure that I have a connection with every PTO and PTA in my zone. That's my connection. A lot of times we don't connect with other people in our area, in our zone. And this is one of the things that I had talked to one of our PTSA's president about, is that if we don't facilitate with the people that we work around within our schools, and a lot of times we feel like it's a struggle because we feel like that we're the only person. How many of y'all feel like you're the only person? You have a meeting, you're the only person there. You have one parent there. You have two parents there. You have three parents. You're trying to get the parents, you're trying to get the kids. But one thing is this, if you start with the kids, you will get the parents. If you start with the children, you will get the parents. And it's not just PTO, and it's not just PTSA. It's all of us as a community. We all are doing the same thing. We all are coming out to make sure that we educate, give parents to these children in any type of capacity. So it's not the PTO and it's not the PTSA, it's what we decide to do for that child, and every child is in our community.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Joni Jefferson, and I'm the PTA president for Jackson Elementary School. We're a fairly new PTA, and so I understand what you're saying about being alone, because my entire board quit on me, so it's just me. But I stay steadfast, I'm still going. We're going to work it out. But my question is a simple one. What happened to recess and cursive? because I asked the principal and other administrators, you know, the children are technology savvy. They know the Chromebooks are great. They know how to text. They know how to type, but can they sign a check? I'm teaching my child cursive at home and try to make sure that she gets, you know, at least an hour of outside physical activity, but I'm not seeing that in the school. So my question is, why was it taken away and how can we get it back?
Well, first of all, cursive writing is a part of the curriculum. So if it's not being taught to your children in elementary school, that's a conversation that should be happening with your principal. But cursive writing is a part of the standards here in the state of Georgia. I want to say third grade. So we'll go back and look at it, but I can assure you, we've already checked this year, so that came up. Third grade does have standards for teaching cursive writing. Your other question, recess.
I was told that it's only mandated that they have 15 minutes of outside play a day, and with the cold weather, of course, they don't get that, which is understandable.
Recess looks differently at every school. Of course, you know, kids have lunch, they have PE, etc. And so principals working with their teachers can build in that recess as most appropriate. One thing, they've got to do it within the time that we have, and this is the challenge. This is out, and you all know I try to be very honest. The school can only do so much. In elementary school, how many hours do you all have? 5.5? Okay, there are 24 hours in a day. So if we really want our children to play like that, they can play at home. And I'm just saying, I want you all, we can't put the burden on the schools. What I'm saying is this, recess is important, and I've heard this question for many years in education. But what I try to get parents to understand is, the purpose of recess is for socialization, isn't it? The school is not the only one developing social skills. They have 5.5 hours, and they're trying to, you just said cursive writing. They got to teach reading. They got to teach math. Let's keep going on. So at some point, somebody else has got to take some responsibility for what the schools may not have time to get to. I think it's a fair thing to ask families to build in time outside of school for children to play. As a matter of fact, turn off these televisions, these devices, and let them go outside and run around. Let them play. And that's what we're seeing. And so we just got to be careful as a society. We want the school, as I heard someone say, we want the school to do things that we really should be doing as families. And communities. And communities. And so I wish I could give you a better answer. I think I've given you a good answer, but that's just not something that we really pressure schools to do. I don't know, but I've been around education for many years, and the same question keeps coming up. Even when I was in school, I remember having lunch, but I remember recess, but it was all related to lunchtime. And so I don't know if there was. Oh, okay. So don't they have morning time when they get to school, after school time?
Dr. Beasley, this is our last question.
Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, Dr. Beasley. Two quick questions. With the buildings, using the SPLOST funds to build new buildings, I have a student that attends Mundy's Mill Middle School, and so the question is posed, will that be a school in the near future to be a rebuild or adding on to that school? I'm aware that they do have new units that they have placed in the building, but some of our children are still getting a little sick with different things going on with that current building. So will that be a building that would be demolished or replenished?
I want to say that clearly SPLOST 6 projects have been identified. I want to say on the list that we've already started for SPLOST 7, that Mundy's Mill Middle School is on that list.
Great. another question being posed after this year, will we still have our parent liaisons in place for each of our schools? My parent liaison had to leave this afternoon, but I do value her very much. She makes sure that we get all the emails out, or all the current things that are happening in the school, not only with our school, but as a whole with Clayton County. Will those still be in place for our schools?
That's a good question, and honestly, I don't even want to say yes, because as I shared with them, if I keep hearing from parents, parent PTOs, that we can't get parents engaged, but then I have all these parent liaisons in these schools, my question is, what are we paying for?
Absolutely.
And so we're having those honest conversations that we're not going to continue to pay for positions to do certain things, but those things are not occurring. Not saying that they're not, and maybe your school is an exception, but we've got people that are being paid to get parents engaged, involved, and if we've got to look at that whole process and do it differently, then that's something that we're willing to do. Maybe they think they're supposed to work from 8 to 3, but parents are only available after 3. So maybe it's time for us to rethink that whole structure. Does that make sense? So I can't say going forward next year that you'll have this program in the format that it's in, because if it's not effective, my question is, what are we going to do to make it effective and to meet the needs of parents? Okay.
One other quick thing, then we'll go. To piggyback off what you said, she had a question about the homeless children in our schools. My daughter is a member of the Delta Academy with Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. They do have programs for young girls that they do on weekends. They meet at least once a month throughout the school year. And so those girls are taught etiquette. They're taught how to self-care for themselves. They're taught how to care for others. This year, during the Christmas holiday, they did make care packs just as of a weekend ago to send to those students that did not have toothbrushes or did not have, socks or anything for toiletries. So they are doing that, and they also we were able to provide Christmas for 3 families this Christmas break, and that did include some pretty high expensive things. Some family needed a laptop, some family needed food, some family needed clothing, and so the donations were added to those. Ms. Sonia Davis did help incorporate that, so like you said, she is a good person to speak with in helping our homeless students to get what they need.
Very good. Thanks for sharing that. Well, thank you all.
Wait a minute, Dr. Beasley. I'm sorry. Right person just walked in. What was the name of your student, the homeless student that was your valedictorian? I know last name was Fierce.
Yeah, Shalisa Fierce.
Shalisa Fierce was a homeless student at Drew High School. She not only was she the valedictorian, she also graduated with did she have an associate's degree? Or when she started, she got a full ride to Spelman and went into Spelman as a junior. So,
Degree in biology.
Yeah, and Sonia Davis actually gives a scholarship in her name now. So don't think I know that we understand their situation, but those children really have the capabilities to be scholars as well. But I just want to note that. Okay, Dr.
Thanks, everybody. So we'll see you all the next time, okay? Take care.